It is just after 5 p.m. here on the East Coast. We're on the air with a special report as Charlie Kirk, the conservative activist, has died after being shot during an event at Utah Valley University.
He was loud, unapologetic, and everywhere until suddenly he wasn't. Charlie Kirk's voice, once a driving force in the most polarizing debates in America, has gone quiet. And now, new information is shaking everything up. What really happened behind the cameras? What details were kept from the headlines? And why are even his closest allies speaking in hushed tones? This isn't just about one moment. It's about a pattern. The silence says more than words ever could. And the truth, once uncovered, may be more unsettling than anyone imagined. The day Charlie Kirk was shot. September 10th, 2025. What was supposed to be a routine appearance at Utah Valley University turned into a national tragedy. Charlie Kirk, 31, was speaking outdoors at Utah Valley University in Orem, Utah, addressing a crowd of about 3,000 people. He was in the middle of answering a question about gun violence, a topic he'd discussed many times before, when the unthinkable happened.
We are also told that on social media video, we can hear the audio where an audience member asked Kirk about mass shooters in America right before the gunshot. An audience member says, "Do you know how many mass shooters there have been in America over the last 10 years? Kirk says, "Counting or not counting gang violence," and that is when that single shot was fired.
At around 12:20 p.m. local time, a single gunshot rang out. Some in the crowd thought it was a firework or a technical issue. But then Kirk recoiled in his chair. Blood was visible on his neck. For a moment, everything slowed. Then panic erupted. "I heard a loud bang, and then I saw his body actually, in slow motion, kind of fall over," one eyewitness recalled. Students dropped to the ground. Some froze. Others began sprinting. "We all dropped to the ground, and I want to say we sat like that for about 30 to 45 seconds, and then everyone around us got up and started running," said Emma Pitts, a reporter from Deseret News. Security moved fast, but the damage had been done. Kirk was quickly transported to Intermountain Medical Center in Salt Lake City. Emergency surgery was attempted. But just over 30 minutes later, the announcement came. Charlie Kirk had died from his injuries. News coverage was instant. Reactions were explosive. What began as a campus conversation about gun rights ended in gunfire, turning a political figure into a national headline and reigniting a cultural firestorm that shows no sign of cooling. And in the void left behind, an even larger question emerged. What happens to the movement he built when its leader is gone? A movement left leaderless. Charlie Kirk wasn't just a media personality. He was the driving force behind Turning Point USA, a conservative youth organization he founded in 2012 at just 18 years old. Over more than a decade, he built it into one of the most influential right-wing movements in America, especially among high school and college students. Kirk wasn't just its founder. He was its voice, its energy, and its brand.
Do you believe that abortion is worse than the Holocaust?
So they're both distinct evils,
of course,
with some similarities. The Holocaust in some ways was far more evil,
okay,
but as far as magnitude, the abortion crime is more evil, and I can explain more if you'd like.
Okay, sure.
So when news of his assassination broke, Turning Point USA was thrown into chaos. Within hours, the group issued a somber statement. Charlie Kirk was not just our leader, he was our brother, our friend, and our fearless defender of truth. But behind the scenes, insiders admitted they had no clear succession plan. Kirk had been so hands-on, so ever-present, that no one had stepped forward as his natural successor. Several top influencers affiliated with TPUSA, including Benny Johnson and Candace Owens, posted tributes online. But none offered insight into what would come next. Even at Kirk's memorial, held just a day after his death, it became clear that no single figure could fill his shoes. Other conservative figures have postponed public appearances, citing fear of politically motivated violence. But it's the young followers of Kirk's message who feel the most lost. College chapters across the country have reported candlelight vigils, student-led forums, and even spontaneous prayer circles. all grieving not just a leader, but a symbol. The shock hasn't worn off, but the leadership vacuum is already being felt, and for many, that vacuum highlights just how polarizing his presence truly was. Controversy was his brand. To his supporters, Charlie Kirk was bold. To his critics, he was reckless. But one thing was clear. Controversy wasn't a byproduct of his career. It was the fuel. From the start, Kirk positioned himself as an unapologetic voice against what he called the radical left, and he did it with a tone that was anything but subtle. Through Turning Point USA, he promoted a brand of politics that was brash, confrontational, and often inflammatory. He frequently sparred with university faculty, staged public debates, and posted viral clips designed to stir outrage. And it worked. Millions followed him for exactly that reason. But the backlash followed him just as fiercely. His remarks on women's roles, gun violence, and the LGBTQ+ community regularly made headlines. Kirk once referred to feminism as a cultural poison and criticized Pride Month as a month-long celebration of sin. His views on race were equally polarizing. He opposed teaching critical race theory and downplayed systemic racism, drawing heavy fire from civil rights groups.
And I think the Second Amendment also qualifies that we should have regulations for guns. I wanted to know your thoughts on that.
Sure. Do you think gun ownership is a right or a privilege?
I think it's a right, but it comes with responsibilities.
Okay, tell me more.
In a 2024 episode of his podcast, Kirk claimed that America doesn't have a gun problem, it has a morality problem, after a string of mass shootings. That line alone was condemned by survivors, advocacy groups, and fellow commentators, but it also earned him more loyal fans. Multiple media outlets, including the BBC and Axios, documented his rapid rise through the right-wing media ecosystem, while also noting how his style amplified division. Kirk rarely backtracked, even when protests erupted outside his events. To some, he was brave. To others, dangerously inflammatory. But no matter where you stood, one thing was undeniable. Charlie Kirk thrived on outrage. And while that made him powerful, it also made him a lightning rod for criticism, threats, and eventually tragedy. And the controversies, they didn't stop with politics. They bled into security concerns. And some of those concerns now look like missed warnings. Warning signs ignored or missed. In the days following Charlie Kirk's assassination, one question echoed louder than any other. Were the warning signs there all along? And if they were, why were they ignored? Kirk's high-profile persona came with constant backlash and threats. He was no stranger to online vitriol. According to security sources close to Turning Point USA, Kirk had received multiple threats over the years, especially after hosting rallies or delivering fiery speeches on college campuses. Some were vague, others were disturbingly specific, but none were acted on with the urgency they might have deserved. In early August, a now-deleted forum post warned that a reckoning is coming at one of Kirk's upcoming appearances. At the time, his team reportedly brushed it off as typical internet noise, part of the cost of being controversial in the digital age. It wasn't the first time. Law enforcement now confirms that no credible intelligence had indicated a specific threat against Kirk in the days leading up to the shooting. However, critics are pointing out a troubling pattern, a growing trend of political violence being underestimated until it's too late. Several witnesses noted that security seemed lighter than expected for such a large event. There were no visible bag checks or metal detectors, and only 6 officers were assigned despite thousands in attendance. And with his death, the broader question is not just about safety, it's about the impact he left on America itself. Dividing America, one speech at a time. Charlie Kirk didn't just speak at podiums, he ignited firestorms. For years, his rallies, college tours, and viral clips weren't just speeches. They were battlegrounds for America's cultural identity. And that was exactly how he wanted it. Whether you saw him as a fearless truth-teller or a dangerous provocateur, Kirk's influence was undeniable. He weaponized free speech, delivering unfiltered takes on everything from immigration and abortion to religion and race. But it wasn't the topics, it was his tone. Kirk knew how to provoke, He made headlines by saying things many wouldn't dare, like comparing liberal professors to indoctrinators or calling gender-affirming care child abuse. Supporters cheered him on, praising his no apologies approach to patriotism and Christian values. Turning Point USA became more than an organization. It was a movement, one that drew in millions of young conservatives united by Kirk's combative message and social media savvy. But the same words that rallied followers also enraged critics. LGBTQ+ activists slammed his statements as dangerous.
Do you think men can give birth?
I think that
Yes or no question.
I think that a person who is assigned male at birth, I don't think they can give
Assigned
birth.
male at birth, so people are not male at birth?
I think that a person.
See, you're evidence that college is a scam, my friend.
Women's rights groups called out his repeated jabs at feminism. Civil rights organizations accused him of fueling racial division. Kirk didn't back down. If anything, the backlash became part of his brand. He wore controversy like armor, often mocking cancel culture as proof that he was winning the culture war. His speeches weren't about finding common ground. They were about drawing lines and choosing sides. Now, with his voice silenced, America is left asking, did he build a platform that empowered free thought, or one that sowed division at every turn? Thanks for watching. If this story left you thinking, don't forget to like the video, drop a comment with your thoughts, and subscribe for more stories that dig deeper than the headlines. And if you're ready for the next twist, watch the video on your screen now. You won't want to miss what we uncovered next.